Hi, I'm Debbie Georgatos. Welcome to my show, America, Can We Talk? Today, we're going to talk about Katie Hopkins breaks into America, Netflix, Cuties, porn, sex ed and cultural Marxism, and cops shot, BLM, Chants, death. And of course, I'll tell you why these stories matter to you. Stay tuned.
Debbie Georgatos, host of America Can We Talk, is an author, attorney, and political analyst whose mission is to inspire the American political conversation about preserving liberty in the best country on earth.
And welcome again to America Can We Talk and to today's First Five. I always feel like this on Monday. I can't wait to get back in the studio. So many stories to talk about, so little time. Today in the First Five, I want to talk about Katie Hopkins. And some of you recognize her name because because she's famous, because she's joined me on the show many times, because she is a leader internationally in speaking out on behalf of freedom, on behalf of the idea that people in countries around the world have the right to live in freedom, to not live under tyranny. She has been outspoken about what's happening to her home country, the UK, what's happened to her country because of massive changes in policies over decades that have resulted in truly the loss of the fundamental freedoms of people in the UK, the expanded immigration that brought in large numbers of Islamic refugees who have then taken over certain areas of the country, geographically, have certainly taken over certain areas of law, certain areas, and just changed the culture and the fabric of Britain. She is in America again. She is here in part because I invited her to speak at the conference I'm hosting in just 2 weeks, and actually in less than 2 weeks. It is on Saturday, September 26th. It's here in the Dallas area. The name of the conference is American Women and American Freedom. And if you'd like to come, we still have tickets. We are doing very well selling tickets and getting sponsors, but there are tickets left. I'd love to have you come. I have a stellar lineup of speakers you just won't believe. Stellar lineup, great, great, great event. And so if you're interested, please email me at americacanwetalk@gmail.com. And you can also go to the conference website, AmericanWomenAmericanFreedom.com. But back to Katie Hopkins. Part of the reason she planned this lengthy trip here was to be sure and be here in Dallas on September 26th. And I've been in touch with her a lot since she's arrived. But I wanted to play for you a little clip. This is a little video she did in one of her hotel rooms, traveling around the country as she's back in America, trying to spread the message of freedom and the need for free people in countries around this world to stand up for freedom. Here it is. Here's Katie Hopkins.
I thought it might be fun to have a conversation about what I'm actually up to. I don't really talk about myself very much, probably because I'm quite shy. But I thought it might be useful to update you. So British people are not allowed into America. We can't come in because we're seen as Ebola, I think. One of the naughty things Trump did was banned British people, which meant I was banned as well. But I'm not really very good at being told no. So I have broken into the United States. If you need advice on how to get into America as a Brit or a European, you can always give me a shout and I can tell you how. But it involves multiple flights. It involves isolation and 14 days in quarantine and some fairly unpleasant testing at different airports. But either way, I've made it into the States. And my aim being here is to support the Trump campaign. We have just over 60 days to get 4 more years of Trump, and I am not going to sit on my arse in Britain and wait for that to happen. So I am moving around places that other speakers typically don't go to bring people together and to remind them, of the positivity and the optimism of our side. We have so many things to be positive and optimistic about. We have our faith. My faith is built on many things. One of them, of course, being the fact that I am cured from epilepsy and I'm on extra time already. So I will always have faith, and whatever happens to me, it's okay. I can throw caution to the wind, because when you've given extra time, it doesn't matter so much when the end might come. Second up, of course, we have our families. And for all of us, I know that we recognize that our family is a red line. No one's going to come near our family. No one's going to hurt our family. And if they try to, well, that will be the last day that they have.
Katie Hopkins, you gotta love her. the actual segment that I played for you was actually, I think, a little bit. I only did maybe the first third of it. So you can go to our website, americacanwetalk.org, and you can click on the link on the homepage of America Can We Talk under shows, drop down list of links, and you can go right to that video and hear the rest of what she had to say. She also has a new article out, and I wanted to share it with you. And again, we also posted that on our website, americacanwetalk.org. The article she wrote is called Breaking Back. It's about breaking back into America. But she put some pretty poignant things in here, and I wanted to share with you, make sure you understand what she's talking about, how she's thinking. She's talking about the elections of 2020. In fact, her language, her terms. The 2020 presidential election is a tipping point for Western civilization. It marks the last stand of the right against the very wrong, of law and order against anarchy and chaos, and democracy over socialism. It is not political, but biblical in proportion. It's an eloquent article talking about the very things. I think, my microphone is, sorry. I'm going to move the microphone a little bit so I keep bumping my necklace. Sorry. It is an effort on her part to inspire American people to understand just how extreme, just how dangerous the choice is we have in front of us in November of 2020. The choice, as she said, democracy or socialism, law and order versus chaos and anarchy. That is the election of 2020. And she's very eloquent. She runs through the article talking about different places she has visited while she's been in America. She goes to meetings where she's able to speak without masks and social distancing and sees full-grown adult men crying for joy, literally crying for joy, because they can engage in conversation. She writes eloquently about so many things that are wrong in the world and what's happening in the world, and how America really has a choice of re-electing a leader who is among the few in the world still willing to stand up for we the people and our right to live in freedom. Fabulous article. She'll be fabulous at the conference I'm hosting in Dallas on September 26th. Again, if you have not bought tickets, I urge you to get them by emailing me at americacanwetalk@gmail.com, and I urge you to read her article, Breaking Back. And that, my very fine friends, is today's First Five. Okay, so I got to tell you, folks, I think all of you probably heard about this controversy involving Netflix. Netflix has a new a release video called Cuties. And, great name. Who doesn't, Cuties sounds like maybe it's about puppies or, little animals in nature. Cuties is about an 11-year-old girl who is, and her other people of her age in the film, who want to become, allegedly someday want to become dancers. But what the film depicts is 11-year-old girls and girls around that age engaging in extremely graphic sexual imitation, graphic movements. Twerking is the term, one term used to describe what the girls are doing in this film. It is a film that truly horrified, as more people became aware about it in this country, horrified people that Netflix would be putting it out there and as though it was a great thing, a great accomplishment. And I want to talk about this on a variety of levels, because I actually think it's really, really important to think about in terms of preserving America. I tell you all the time, this show, America Can We Talk, is all about preserving America. I can talk, as you well know if you listen all the time, I can talk at great length about the importance of strong military and limited government and a secure border and appropriate standards for citizenship and tax rates. There are just dozens and dozens of relevant issues in America that people can talk about in terms of preserving America and shaping America's future. It's very easy for politicians, really in both parties, to steer clear of issues like the one involving Netflix. It's very easy, especially for conservatives. It's a safe territory to walk in to say, well, I stand for low taxes and limited government and a strong military and secure border. These are, red meat kind of topics for Republicans to stand for. But the issues raised by this Netflix film don't fall into one of those very comfortable categories. You have to be willing to talk about the danger and the existence of morality and the moral surrounding presenting 11-year-old children in a sexualized context, a sexualized message. I'm not going to play the trailer. I'm not going to play clips because I don't think that really helps the conversation. This film is a piece or a part or evidence of the problem we face in this country as we have the radical left in this country more and more pushing the envelope on the question of sexual morality. It's important to understand this because it is not just a film that happens to touch on certain behaviors or certain desires of a young girl to become a dancer. It is a film that touches on the idea, I'm so sorry, this is very distracting, and I'm going to do this right during the show. I'm going to move this clip around so it is not bumping my necklace. There, that'll be much better, I'm sure. Okay, so this is a film that is really truly about that raises the issue that matter to all of America, which is what kind of a culture do we have? Who decides cultural morality? Who has a say in cultural morality? And part of what happens, why all these very proud Republican conservatives don't speak up on issues like this, is because they know they will be pummeled, mocked, and ridiculed by the Twitter mob, by the leftists in this country, who simply will not tolerate conversation that tends to suggest there is such a thing as Christian morality or morality in general. It's just not comfortable for many politicians to go down this path. They stay in the safe lane, the non-passing lane, the safe lane of taxes, fund the military, have a strong military and a secure border. So I first want to give great credit to at least two Republicans who did speak up to talk about the disgusting nature of this film, to denounce Netflix for putting it out there. And those two politicians are, one, Senator Ted Cruz from the great state of Texas, my senator. Ted Cruz was out there early on talking about this movie and basically saying the movie sexualizes 11-year-old girls. It's a great term he uses, sexualizes 11-year-old girls. And he actually called for the Department of Justice to investigate Netflix, all the distributors, everyone involved with the film, on the question of whether they had violated federal child porn laws. We actually have, fortunately in America still, child porn laws. It may be a question someday a judge will look at to decide, what the standards are and did what this movie depicts, what this film depicts, did it constitute child porn or not? That's a question for down the line. I just want to commend the very few people in politics and other places in life who are willing to speak up and say this is unacceptable. We don't put child sex into Netflix and release it out to the world. And to be clear, it's not sexual intercourse. It's not sexual intimacy. It's just right on the edge of hinting at it and being alluring, and girls taught how to engage in very sexualized, suggestive dancing. So Ted Cruz spoke up and said he denounced the film. He suggested that we should have an investigation on this film called Cuties by Netflix. The other person who spoke up, and there may be others and I'll give them credit too, the other one who spoke up right away was another Republican senator, Josh Hawley, who spoke up to say he just urged Netflix CEO Reed Hastings to have this platform take down the film. Just says it inappropriately sexualizes young girls. And he wrote a letter to Netflix, made his letter public, so he's willing to take a stand that in this country that we don't have sexualized films about 11-year-olds and try to pretend it is just simply just the next phase in our growing understanding of our sexuality, our growing understanding of pushing the norms, pushing the limits on films. He's saying, no, this doesn't belong anywhere here. God bless him, both him, Hawley, and Cruz. But I want to mention some other things, aspects about this film. Number one, it's put out by Netflix. You may remember that in 2018, former President Obama, Barack Obama, and his wife Michelle Obama signed a contract with Netflix for millions of dollars to promote films. So they're not on the board of Netflix, although Susan Rice, their longtime ally and buddy, is on the board of Netflix and could have spoken up about the content of this film. But she didn't. No damper put on there. And frankly, given the stature of the Obamas, if they had uttered one word to Netflix about not too sure this is a good idea, they, in my estimation, could have caused Netflix to say, okay, never mind. But they didn't do that. Again, it's easy for people to stand back, unless it's pure, flat out, sexual action by 5-year-olds, it's easy for people like the Obamas, like many Democrats, like many Republicans to say, well, I'm not going to talk about that. This falls in the arena of First Amendment issues, and I don't know how the porn law should be interpreted. I'm not too sure what should be right or wrong here, so I'm going to stay out of it. And this is a problem we have in America, because our culture, the famous statement by Andrew Breitbart that said politics is downstream from culture. As our culture becomes more sexualized, more debased, more disrespectful of women, it ultimately debases and degrades our whole country. There's nothing noble about standing up for for the right to have a movie that sexualizes the behavior of 11-year-olds, that has them twerking and engaging in imitation of sexual activity. This is not progress for mankind. This is not growing into a deeper and better understanding of America. This is nothing good. This is pure porn. Whether it meets the legal standard for porn, some court may decide someday, but the speaking up about it was a great example for Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, and an example on the left of complete dead silence. Silence by all these people who say they care about the children. The left's always caring about children and caring about protecting children, but they're not really. Not when it involves this kind of perverse sexuality. They're too timid. They're too afraid of the LGBTQ crowd. They're too afraid of the Twitter mob to speak up on an important issue like this. But it matters in terms of shaping our culture, because once it's out there on Netflix, it becomes the new norm, the new lowered standard, the new reduced standard for what is appropriate, what is reasonable, what belongs in our culture, and will only go downward from there. So I really commend the people speaking up. And the last point I want to make about it's a really important thing to think about in terms of what these people are saying, because the people who defend this kind of stuff, the people who, in fact, the person who was involved, she was either the producer or the writer, was saying, well, I did this because it kind of depicted my own thinking, as I was that age, what I thought about sexuality. I'm trying to just explore and open the door to more understanding. So it's justified as kind of intellectual, kind of, post-Christian morality, post-morality, post these old-fashioned, silly old Christians, and not just Christians, but people of many faiths who would say they don't really think we need to have 11-year-old girls depicting sexual conduct in films. But you have people defending it on some, claiming they're in some heightened, advanced intellectual level. They're smarter than we are. They're more advanced. They're post-Christianity, post-morality, and they very quickly, of course, mock people who are calling for Netflix to take this film down. So I really commend, as I said, Hawley and Cruz. I really think that Michelle Obama and Barack Obama ought to tell America why they think it's okay that their company that they're heavily working with, that they're making millions from making films with, that their buddy Susan Rice says on the board, why are they okay with this? Is this really how they hope that the messaging to girls that comes from movies like this? But the last point I want to make about, and there is, by the way, plenty of ridicule out there of anyone criticizing the movie, even the Forbes magazine, which I have no idea what's happened to Forbes magazine. It used to be Steve Forbes thing. It used to be conservative. It's just over the cliff into radical leftism. They've lost their minds at Forbes, and they ran some opinion piece saying that any controversy over the Netflix film Cuties is totally ridiculous. But I want to finish one more really important point before I get to the next topic. What people argue in terms of supporting and enabling this kind of film is this idea that, as we move forward as a people, as a culture, as we continue to advance and we advance past, the ancient, old, silly biblical standards, we need to keep on thinking about what it is that empowers women and is, in fact, is part of the defense put forward by people defending this film. They're saying that sexuality in this particular film, some of the allusions to pole dancing, strip teasing, the very sexually suggestive thing, that somehow having more women engage in and be okay with the idea of promiscuity and selling their sexuality, that somehow is empowering women. Another example, I talked last week one day about feminexit, another reason to reject the left's argument about femininity and being feminine, what it means to be a woman. There's nothing empowering, true, about the right idea of empowering women to say they're empowered, but when they can become more comfortable doing pole dancing, engaging in very sexual suggestive dancing in films, in public. That is not empowering of women. It's demeaning to women. It is demeaning to women. And the idea that people back in this film and say, no, this is advancing women, it's another indication of the sickness of the American left, not having a right sense of womanhood, not having a right sense of standing up for women, could not possibly be equated with sexualizing women and having women dance, display, be involved in more and more sexual, overtly sexual movies and entertainment, that somehow empowers women. It's an insult to the right idea of femininity, an insult to the right idea of being a woman and women being empowered to think you get empowered. We used to understand this. This is why we used to understand why sex workers, why prostitution was not empowering women to live in freedom. It was enslaving them. It was demeaning to them. That's the right idea of empowering women, is to dismiss that, reject it. Women are not empowered by being encouraged to cheer on 11-year-olds engaged in sexual dancing in some film. That's not empowerment. That is denigrating them. And the next topic for today I want to hit, and it's very related to this topic, has to do with what we're doing in sex education in this country, and this kind of cultural Marxism idea. And every time I talk about cultural Marxism on this show, I get one of our listeners sending me messages or posting on YouTube or wherever they're listening and saying, there's no such thing as cultural Marxism. That's not a real thing. You're just making the right makes up that term. But there really is such a thing about cultural Marxism, and I want to tell you what it is. I did not make up the term. I didn't make up the concept. The concept actually came from an Italian communist who understood how America was not going to surrender to socialism, Marxism, communism. America wasn't going to surrender to it if you just present it as, hey, look, America, you have this beautiful, free country, this country rooted in Judeo-Christian values. You have prosperity, you have abundance, you have freedom. Throw it all away and come join in with the socialists, the communists, and the Marxists. They soon realized America would reject them. It's one reason the Marxists in this country have turned to using race as the pivot point to argue that America should embrace Marxism, which is what BLM is doing, because real Marxism, socialism, communism are nauseating and no one wants them. No one who understands them wants them. But there was, on the subject of cultural Marxism, there was an Italian, I guess he likes to be called a philosopher, a communist Italian named Antonio Gramsci. And he talked about the idea that the way to take down America, the way to take down Christianity, which he recognized was upholding America, is to go after our culture. He specifically wrote about and advocated the idea that in order for the ugliness of socialism, Marxism, communism to make their way into American society, you had to eat away at the Christian faith. You had to eat away at the idea of what churches teach. You had to eat away and work away at, destroy the beauty, the goodness, the greatness of what's taught in Christian churches. And this is what he advocates. His language. Socialism is precisely the religion that must overwhelm Christianity. Socialism will triumph by first capturing the culture via infiltration of schools, universities, churches, and the media, by transforming the consciousness of society. This is what cultural Marxism is. This is what they are doing. This film we just talked about, Cuties, is an example of just undermining America's culture, undermining our nurturing protection of children, undermining our sense of the innocence of children and the right place of intimate relations as taught in religions instead of as taught by perverse people who are trying to sell films and make money by over-sexualizing our culture. So Gramsci wrote about this. He wrote specifically about going after communist warriors. He wrote, this is actually Cleon Skousen writing about the former FBI agent who wrote the book Naked Communist, who wrote about the effort of the communists to take over America. And he wrote 45 communist goals. One of them was calls on communist warriors to infiltrate churches, replace revealed religion with social religion. Revealed religion is based on scripture. The communist concept of social religion teaches citizens to look to government. We're watching this unfold in front of us. And so, the cultural Marxism attacking America, one attack is along the lines of sex education in public schools. And I want to tell you about something and urge you to read the website yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. Read the website yourself. Comprehensive Sexuality Education is a very, very trendy term on the left. Comprehensive Sexuality Education, CSE. The gist of it is to use public school education, to use sex education as a means to destroy Christian morality, to destroy what parents have for centuries, for millennia, taught their children through the course of churches, through reading of the Bible, through passing along to their children their understanding about sexual morality. This is an idea to circumvent the Christian family, circumvent the Christian church, go right from the communist Marxist destruction of our country right to the children through sex education. And so this massive effort, international effort, funded by Planned Parenthood, blessed by United Nations, massive, massive data available for you to read to understand more about it. But this comprehensive sexuality education, CSE, includes things like teaching children that they should accept and explore diverse sexual orientations and gender identities, promotes high-risk sexual behaviors, including anal and oral sex, by teaching that they are safe, promotes sexual pleasure and promiscuity as a right for children. As a right for children. Teaches abortion, of course, is safe, no consequences, encourages young children to experiment sexually with individuals of their own sex or the opposite sex or both. It claims access to comprehensive sexuality education is a human right. It teaches children and youth that they are sexual from birth. I could go on and on, but you have to understand, this is not just the next stage in public school education, and we're going to do a little more teaching children about sex education. It's not teaching. It's not informing them about facts. It's advocacy about morality relating to sex. And you can see kids coming out of our schools. Not every school district in America has this, but it has filled schools around the country and around the world, and filled them with the thoughts that are inconsistent with what many parents have been trying to teach their children, and inconsistent with holding on to the culture and fabric of America. So you can understand why kids coming out of schools that learn this kind of thing look at the Netflix film Cuties and say, well, what's wrong with that? Hey, it's just like next step, hey, we're cool. So I'm going to talk more about this issue, but I want to just wrap up the show today. One more quick story. But I want you to think about the idea that when you look at your children or your grandchildren's public school curricula, do not assume that everything in it is the product of reasonable assessment by people who are rooted in the American ideas of individual liberty, rooted in the ideas of the founding of America, rooted in the ideas of Judeo-Christian values, rooted in the belief that parents have the right to teach their children about morality and Christianity and what they want them to believe about it. What you see in public school curricula is an agenda-driven effort by leftists to use cultural Marxism to undermine the place, the strength, the purpose of church in society, Christianity in society, families in society, to uproot all that thinking out of the minds of children and replace it with their anything goes sexuality, any identity goes. You don't really have an identity. You're not really a boy or a girl from birth. You're whatever you think you are, whatever you want to be. It's not designed to inform your kids. It's designed to advocate advocate the abandonment of commonly held, millennia-old ideas about sexual morality. And even my doing this topic on this show, I'm going to have commenters on YouTube, on Facebook saying, oh, you're being a prude, you're being a Puritan, get with modern times, who are you to dictate what other people think? And this is the question, actually, because this is one reason people don't speak up. They hear these kind of things in the schools or in their communities, and they think, well, who am I to speak up? Who are these people pushing comprehensive sexuality education? Who are they to be telling your children what they should believe about sexual morality? Who the heck do they think they are? Who are they to be telling your children what they ought to believe about the rightness and wrongness of sexual morality? Who are they to have any role in the public schools teaching sexual morality? We had sex education in our schools whenever it began, I think in the 60s, which was supposed to be just making sure everybody had the facts straight about the birds and the bees, so you didn't have kids unaware of things. Whether that was a wise choice or not back then, what it has become today is an avenue for advocacy funded by Planned Parenthood, in large part the CSE agenda funded by Planned Parenthood, all designed to make sure children abandon the morality that they learn from home, abandon their Christian faith, embrace this anything goes, seemingly no rules, no consequences idea that the left is pushing. People need to speak up on our side. If you go to the website, the Comprehensive Sexuality website, which I have up on my website, I don't know if I have that right here, but on my website, americacanwetalk.org, on the homepage under shows, drop down list of links, I put a link to this website that explains what is actually in the comprehensive sexuality education your children may be learning. Children around America, around the world are learning, because on that website you can sign a petition saying, get this out of our schools, and you ought to sign it, because it's preposterous that these people think they have more of a right to teach sexual morality to children they don't know than their own parents do. One last quick topic for today, changing topics, and this, obviously most of you heard this horrific event happened. Police officers shot in Los Angeles. Literally, 2 police officers sitting in their car, not arresting anybody, not hassling, just sitting in their car. Somebody walked up with a gun, shot into the car, shot both officers in the head. The officers obviously gravely injured, lifted to a local hospital. And the protesters who are, have lost their, at this point, the Black Lives Matter, which has nothing to do with Black lives, has nothing to do with discrimination, has nothing to do with racism. Black Lives Matter is a Marxist movement designed to take down this country. That is what Black Lives Matter is. And yes, no capital letters in the sentence. Yes, of course, every single person, their life matters. Every Black life matters. Every life matters, of every skin color, race, or ethnicity. The organization BLM is a violent organization dedicated to overthrowing the government in America. And the BLM shows up after these police shot in the head, doing nothing at all to offend anyone, shot in the head. And this, I want to show you the video that Matt the Wonderful has. BLM shows up at the hospital to threaten the hospital. They want to get in. They want to get in the hospital, get in the middle of the emergency room effort to save the lives of these 2 doctors, these 2 police officers. Here you go. Here's the clip.
Stab, whatever.
What's up there, Black family? This is Cowboy Price, Africa Town Coalition. We are out here at St. Francis Hospital, where 2 of America's most notorious gang members have been brought to. We're going to go up here and just check on these murderers right here and see what's up. You know what I'm saying? So let me turn this around. Oh, let me put this blunt out. I'll say this for later. Unfurl those flags. Get those flags open. What's up, y'all? We're down here at the St. Francis Hospital. We're down here. Excuse me?
No, we're coming to visit someone.
No, you're not.
We can't go visit nobody?
You can once we confirm who it is, but there's no visitation allowed anyway, so you gotta go.
All right, y'all. You see what's happening right here, right? They got these pigs out here.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to cut it off here. I'm going to cut it off here. I can't even stand it. I meant to mention before it started, there's some very, very foul language. I'm not even going to play it for you. So they're hassling the hospital. Police are standing outside. And again, these BLM people are calling officers who are sitting in their car doing absolutely nothing, bothering them. America's most notorious gang members, calling them pigs. And people, as you may recall from last week, Lebron James had a long video out about how upset he is and how he's afraid to go out at night. And every Black American's afraid in their home. a lot of criticism. He got a lot of criticism from other black conservatives saying, what are you even talking about? That's not happening. What are you even talking about? But where I want to ask you right now, where is King James, as they like to call LeBron James? Where is he? Where is his video saying, I denounce this cold-blooded, I mean, it isn't murder yet because I think the officers are still alive, but, and I hope they survive. But as that guy you saw was over marching to the hospital, they know that 2 officers were ambushed in their car and shot in the heads, and they're over there still. They're not hiding, they're not embarrassed, they're belligerently confronting the hospital, trying to show up and get inside the hospital to end up demanding that they, who knows what they would have done when they got in. The police were saying no, had to keep them away, turned into a tussle. I want to know where LeBron James is on this. Why isn't he commenting? Where is the NFL, the NBA? All of these players who are saying, all these institutions and players who are bragging about standing up for Black Lives Matter. And by the way, those people outside the hospital, what they were chanting, the BLM people outside the hospital were chanting, we hope they die. We hope they die. I want to tell you folks, we are facing a dangerous time. It is a Marxist revolution. You have very few voices on the left speaking up and denouncing this. I guess Joe Biden or someone affiliated with him who has control of his Twitter account put some statement out denouncing it, unqualified, just they can't do this, and that's good. That's good. I'd like to know where all of the leaders in Washington and in Los Angeles and around this country who have bragged about Black Lives Matter, support it. Where are they saying this cannot happen in America? This is wrong. Where are they? Folks, they are silent. They are so bullied by the Marxist left in this country, they are silent. It's an outrage. Prayers for the healing for those 2 officers. I don't know their condition other than to say they were stable. Last time I heard a report in their condition. I hope they can come around to full recovery. God bless them and their families who are obviously frightened and upset and worried as they should be. And you talk about, LeBron James said that every black American is afraid to get up and walk out the door in the morning. Yeah, imagine being a police officer. Imagine being a police officer. This is not the first time. Literally ambushed, sitting in your car, ambushed, called to a fake crime scene so the police officers come and ambushed. Happens all the time in this country, and this is why there is such a strong Blue Lives Matter movement, an idea we stand up for our police. We cannot tolerate this kind of these actions, these attacks on America's police. We cannot have it in this country. We can always try to fix racism. We can always investigate bad incidents involving cops, but we do stand with law and order, and we stand with the blue. And I would love to hear the moral courage out of LeBron James, NFL, NBA, the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement, anyone else. Love to hear a little bit of courage and a little bit of honesty saying this is outrageous and we reject it. Haven't heard it yet, but I hope we will. As I do at the close of every show, I'd like to tell you why the stories we talked about today matter to you. And so today, we started our show out with the Katie Hopkins Breaks into America. She's a Brit who deeply understands Western civilization, the UK, and America, devoting 3 months in the USA to speak up for saving America. She understands firsthand the ravages of runaway socialism, the dangers of Islamization of Western culture. The last barrier to freedom's collapse is represented by President Donald Trump. The good news from Katie, her speaking events in the USA are well attended, even in California, and by patriots relieved and energized by her message, and she'll be speaking at the American Women and American Freedom Conference. Email me at americacanwetalk@gmail.com if you're interested. Netflix, Cuties porn. Cuties is a Netflix movie portraying 11-year-old girls in sexually explicit and suggestive ways. A classic issue that rhinos avoid, but real conservative leaders must confront. Low taxes, limited government, strong defense do not matter if the culture is lost to moral rot. Cuties reflects the left's bizarre notion that the stripper culture is empowering for women and girls. Senator Cruz has called for a DOJ investigation of whether the laws violated the reproduction and distribution of child porn. Sorry, I don't read that very well. Senator Cruz has called for a DOJ investigation of whether laws violated reproduction and distribution of child porn. Cruz met with the usual mockery from the Twitter left. Susan Rice is on the Netflix board, and Barack and Michelle Obama make millions from Netflix. yet total silence, Ray, Cuties. Americans must get engaged if the culture is to be repaired. Most current politicians just don't have the fortitude to stand up for morality. They've given up. But they will find a backbone if the people give it to them. And we talked about why sex ed and cultural Marxism. Comprehensive sexuality education for the world's children is the latest leftist initiative. It's not about biology or birth control. It's about advocacy for sexual exploration. Ignore the efforts to label objections as prudery. Children deserve innocence, to be protected and preserved. CSA is simple, amoral, immoral indoctrination. CSE is purposeful and is funded by Planned Parenthood, among others. Marxist Antonio Gramsci and other leftists figured out that to take down America and Christianity, they needed to overwhelm it with amoral socialism, to pound away at Christian morality as outdated, to find weak Christian leaders, to capitulate and reinterpret the Bible's teachings so as to avoid pop culture criticism. This is cultural Marxism's attack. Americans must rise up and resist. A CSE culture will have no guardrails. And finally, cops shot and BLM Chants death. Ambush in LA leads to 2 officers shot in the head. BLM activists block hospital access, chant in support of death for the officers, and no one in the official BLM movement denounces this. Where's LeBron James' tweet denouncing this? Where about the NBA, NFL? Where are their tweets denouncing this? And I didn't get to this story, but the Catholic Church in New York City is urging parishioners to support the BLM and renounce white privilege. And they are demonstrating cultural Marxism, demolishing the church's biblical focus and replacing it with a SJW, social justice warrior agenda. It is not difficult to see the BLM for the Marxist organization that it is. They must rise in support of all lives. We must resist BLM's ongoing attempted Marxist overthrow of America and make it be stopped. And that, my very fine friends, is America Can We Talk for today. Thank you so much for tuning in every Monday through Thursday, 3 p.m. Central Time, where I always talk truth about America because America matters. And I will talk to you next time.
America Can We Talk? Truth about America.